And we are live. Welcome to the show again today. Sorry about yesterday. I had a friend over and I just didn't have time to do the show. It was he flew in from the East Coast and I thought, okay, well, I got to spend some time with this guy. Good man. And yeah, just one of those things, an unexpected thing. I wasn't able to do the show. Valeria is here today, ladies and gentlemen. Did you kick something?
Yes.
All right, well, there she is, a little too bright and a little bit out of focus, but otherwise, she is here.
Are you sure I'm there? Am I there?
You're here, yeah.
Can you fix it? Because I don't know.
All right, we'll go to you.
I think I will have to fix my stuff first.
Fix your stuff first.
Yes, like my laptop and microphone. I am.
Well, as I like to say, ladies and gentlemen, we are the least professional show on television, which reminds me, we should probably do the intro. You ready? Toxic masculinity. Yes, I am toxic. My beautiful wife is masculine. Together we are toxic masculinity. And we've got some great stuff to talk about today on the show. Some pretty fascinating news stories. Also, Dogecoin is doing very well today. Valeria has a new strategy because she suspects, although we don't know if this is true, but there's rumors flying around on the internet that perhaps Elon Musk may announce at some point that he will accept other cryptocurrency for Tesla, because he announced, what was it, like 2 days ago or something, that he wasn't going to take Bitcoin anymore for Tesla because Bitcoin was bad for the environment. But Valeria, well, a lot of people online, Valeria's been learning since watching some videos and reading some stories. A lot of people online speculate that the reason he did that was because he wants to accept perhaps Dogecoin or another cryptocurrency. And what is the other cryptocurrency that you suspect that?
Cardano.
Cardano. So there's one called Cardano and one called Doge. So we're going to invest a little bit of money in Cardano, a little bit of money in Doge, and hope that Elon Musk comes out with this announcement. And if he does, we should see the price for these coins skyrocket. Again, we're not experts. We don't know what the hell we're talking about. So you're going to listen to us. You don't have to listen to us. And as always, don't invest so much money that you cannot lose it. Although we have, we've invested probably a little bit too much, but we don't invest everything in one thing. We don't like have all of our money in Doge. We don't have all of our money in Bitcoin. How many coins would you say that we're diversified in altogether? 10?
Like 10, a little bit more.
Yeah, we have like 10 different crypto coins that we're in with differing amounts of money. Just so that, we can spread out the risk and we can spread out the potential gains. If there's any particular coin that does really well, we won't miss out on it. So that's our personal information. Anything else exciting going on, darling?
No.
We're currently in a bit of a spat over a shelf. I put in most of this stuff in our bathroom, and Valeria wants this new shelf put in, but I was too lazy to put it in yesterday. So she's like, "Put in the shelf." You can see how frightening she is. All right, so shall we get on to the first story, darling?
Yes. Marjorie Taylor Greene versus Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez.
Right, Alexandria. Okay, so Marjorie Taylor Greene versus Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez. So you guys may have heard this story. This is pretty fun. So Marjorie Taylor Greene went out to the hallways of Congress, and apparently she sort of accosted Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez, basically calling her out as, the degenerate socialist that she is. But, there's differing accounts of exactly the ferocity of Marjorie Taylor Greene. But a lot of the leftists, especially Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez, are basically freaking out about this and essentially saying that Marjorie Taylor Greene was so terrifying that they need to improve security in Congress to, for Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez's safety. The stuff that they're saying is completely unhinged. I mean, Marjorie Taylor Greene essentially just shouted to her. I don't think she shouted at her. She shouted to her, hey, why don't you debate me? Why don't you, she's calling her out, saying, you believe all this crazy stuff. Why don't we have a debate? Why don't you put your money where your mouth is, put your reputation on the line and go out there and just have a rational conversation about this instead of just, doing these very safe press conferences where she'll go to like a podcast, like a super leftist podcast and say, I mean, Jesus, the people are they're so racist and everybody's so horrible. No, go out there and talk to an actual conservative and, have some courage. Have some courage. Have the courage of your convictions is essentially what she's been saying. And Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez is saying, oh my God, somebody yelled at me. I was frightened. These Republicans are monsters. How dare they say scary words, like you're a politician. Your whole world is like words and debate and conversation and, being accused of things and accusing other people. That's like all what politics is, right? That's the mess of politics. And if you're scared of somebody talking to you, maybe you shouldn't be a representative. But let's go ahead and read the story here. Marjorie Taylor Greene confronts chicken Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez. So Marjorie Taylor Greene afterwards, she called her a chicken in a press conference, which I love. Chicken, I don't know if you know this, but chicken in America is like a coward. Do they say the same thing in Russia?
You can say, yeah. Mm-hmm. Yeah.
It's a weird thing. I wonder how chicken became associated with cowardice.
Not quite chicken. It's like hen. What is the mother of the chicken? Hen?
Yeah.
Hen?
Yeah. Well, I think a chicken is a hen. I think a rooster is
a rooster. Cowardly hen.
Is a rooster just a male chicken, or is a rooster and a chicken is a female rooster?
Rooster is a male.
I know.
Chicken a baby, and hen is a mother.
I think a chicken may be the classification of the kind of bird. Anyway, let's keep reading. AOC Spock's. Marjorie Taylor Greene confronts chicken Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez outside House chamber. AOC Spock's call for Congress to be a safe space for Marjorie Taylor Greene. It's so bizarre. They're like terrified of her. Representative Marjorie Taylor Greene, Republican of Georgia, confronted Representative Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez, Democrat from New York, Wednesday just outside the House chamber about AOC's support for terrorists and Antifa and ducking a debate on her Green New Deal proposal. The incident was witnessed and reported by two Washington Post reporters. AOC threw up her hands and walked away. So the problem with this whole story is that there's no video of it. So we can't exactly say exactly what happened. And so leftists obviously are like, oh, that Marjorie Taylor Greene, she was a maniac. She was screaming like some kind of like psychopathic banshee, like, they're all, of course, blowing this out of proportion because there's no video evidence, so they can basically frame it in whatever way they want and distort the story. Two Washington Post reporters witnessed Ocasio-Cortez exit the chamber late Wednesday afternoon ahead of Greene, who shouted, "Hey, Alexandria," twice in an effort to get her attention. When Ocasio-Cortez did not stop walking, Greene picked up her pace and began shouting at her. I think it's shouting to her. I think saying shouting at her is a distortion. Because if you're shouting at somebody, it's because you're angry at them or something like that. But if you're shouting to somebody, you're trying to get them to pay attention to you because you have something to tell them, presumably. And asking why she supported Antifa, a loosely knit group of far-left activists, and Black Lives Matter, falsely labeling them terrorist groups. Falsely labeling them terrorist groups. Oh, fascinating. This is an excerpt, I think, from the Washington Post or something. Two Washington Post reporters. I don't know what this is an excerpt from. But whoever wrote this thinks that Antifa and Black Lives Matter are not terrorist organizations, which they absolutely are. Greene also shouted that Ocasio-Cortez was failing to defend her radical socialist beliefs by declining to publicly debate the freshman from Georgia. You don't care about the American people, Greene shouted. Why do you support terrorists and Antifa? And I just love that. I think, I'm not a Q person, right? I mean, there's probably people who follow my show that are Q people. I am not. I've never followed the Q stuff. I've never believed the Q stuff. In fact, I've often thought of it as perhaps Democrat misinformation trying to trying to sort of trick conservatives into believing stuff that isn't true, so we're not focusing on the important things. And Marjorie Taylor Greene has actually followed the Q stuff. She's purported some of that stuff, and some of the stuff she's talked about has been Alex Jones stuff, and I like some of the stuff Alex Jones says, but I don't follow Alex Jones either. I don't believe a lot of the stuff that he's purported to be true. Although I do think Alex Jones has brought to light some things that other people aren't willing to do, which I think is important. So I don't think he's like a total fraud or anything. Although I'm not a huge Alex Jones fan. But anyway, so she expresses some ideas that I don't agree with, but nevertheless, in a metaphorical sense, the woman's got balls, and I do respect that greatly. I'm not one of these people that says, okay, well, Marjorie Taylor Greene has said some things I don't agree with, so she's not a real Republican. I don't like her. No, just because you don't agree with somebody on every single issue, that doesn't mean they're not a real conservative or a real Republican. I think she absolutely is a real conservative, and I respect her, and this makes me just like her more. Ocasio-Cortez did not stop to answer Greene, only to turn around once, throwing her hands in the air in an exasperated motion, because she's not so good with the words. Two reporters were not close enough to hear what the New York Congresswoman said, and her office declined to discuss her specific response. Representative Greene tried to begin with an argument. Sorry. I don't know what's going on. I got some kind of issue. All right. Representative Greene tried to begin an argument with Congressman Ocasio-Cortez, and when Representative Ocasio-Cortez tried to walk away, God, why do they keep saying that? Just put AOC. It's so much easier. Congresswoman Greene began screaming. If you're shouting to somebody because they're far away, it's not the same as screaming, right? They're trying to make her sound crazy and kooky, right? That's the totally disingenuous. This is what we call activist reporting. Began screaming and called Representative Ocasio-Cortez a terrorist sympathizer, because she is. Ocasio-Cortez's spokeswoman, Lauren Hitt, said in a statement, "We hope leadership and the Sergeant-at-Arms will take real steps to make Congress a safe, civil place for all members and staff." Yeah, the Sergeant-at-Arms has to get involved here because somebody shouted across the room to AOC. Therefore, AOC is terrified and stuff has to be done. Let's see here. Especially as many offices are discussing reopening. Because of what? Because of COVID? Were they closed because of COVID? I don't understand what they're talking about. One member has already been forced to relocate her office due to Congresswoman Greene's attacks. Did somebody move their office to get away from Marjorie Taylor Greene? That's too funny. Before walking away, Greene said that the encounter was intended to hold Democrats accountable for their policy proposals. She's a chicken. She doesn't want to debate the Green New Deal. She said to a small group of reporters and onlookers near the entrance to the chamber, "These members are cowards. They need to defend their legislation to the people. That's pathetic." I love that. Yeah, so all of this is the Washington Post. They didn't say that until now, but apparently it's the Washington Post that we were reading from. Marjorie Taylor Greene posted about her confronting AOC, saying, "Just talk to AOC again. You chickened out because you're too scared to debate me about your socialist Green New Deal. You are also a hate America terrorist sympathizer. Hashtag Jihad Squad." I love that. I was actually going to report about that the other day, yesterday when I didn't do the show. Hashtag Jihad Squad. I just think that's the best thing ever.
Jihad Squad.
Yeah. Members of Congress do not support terrorism. Let's see here. Yeah. And shouldn't be afraid. I don't know. I don't understand this. And should not be afraid to debate their legislation. Okay, so I think what she's saying is members of Congress should not support terrorism and shouldn't be afraid to debate their legislation. I think that's what she intended to say. But here's the crazy thing. So all these leftists lost their minds at all of this stuff. They are basically, I was reading this whole thread on Twitter about leftists sort of celebrating this, almost like AOC somehow won this confrontation. Like this is somehow proof that Marjorie Taylor Greene is like a bad person, and they're basically like, yeah, Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez is so awesome. She just owned Marjorie Taylor Greene. Oh, because I think AOC responded on Twitter by saying, I used to be a bartender and we used to throw people like you out of the bar. used to throw people out of the bar whose political beliefs you disagreed with? That doesn't sound right. So, but obviously they're trying to say that she was being loud and obnoxious and stuff like that. Now, obviously Marjorie Taylor Greene didn't break anything. She wasn't drunk. She wasn't trying to start like a physical fight or anything like that. She was just shouting to Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez because she wasn't close enough to speak to her, because Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez was essentially running away from her because she's a coward, right? She won't allow herself to get physically close enough to talk to a conservative to actually just have a conversation. So you have to shout to her. Not necessarily shouting at her, right? But they're trying to distort what happened in this way to make Marjorie Taylor Greene sound, crazy. That's the leftist position at this point. Blue checkmark liberals were triggered by Marjorie Taylor Greene peacefully confronting AOC. This is the second time that Marjorie Taylor Greene has created a hostile work environment for her colleagues. Speaker Pelosi should require that Marjorie Taylor Greene work remotely, since she isn't on any committees, and only be in the building for votes. Yeah, that's great. So the Democrats are now going to start telling Republicans they're not even allowed to come into the congressional building. They're not allowed to come into the Capitol building because they don't like them. Charlotte Clymer said it feels like it's only a matter of time before Marjorie Taylor Greene assaults someone on the Hill, and then what? We get a tearful non-apology about how she's stressed or anxious or something? Expel her from the house. Enough is enough. Okay, so it's only a matter of time. So you invent this scenario in which Marjorie Taylor Greene is violent, which she's never done anything violent, but she creates this imaginary scenario in which she's violent. She says, and then after she's violent, she's going to present this non-apology. And then she says, so we need to expel her now because of my imaginary event that never happened. What the hell are you talking about? You just pointed to somebody, said, I think one day they'll do something wrong and therefore they need to be punished for this thing that I just imagined. I mean, it's the craziest thing I've ever heard. Like, these people are delusional. This guy, Michael Harriot, who's always posting insane things, he says, I'm pretty sure we can all agree that Marjorie Taylor Greene is going to stab somebody. Well, I'll tell you what, Michael Harriot, I don't agree. So you're sure everybody could agree with that, but you're wrong. Not everybody does agree with that. And I can guarantee you there are millions of Americans who also disagree with it. So you're wrong. We can't agree with that. She's never stabbed anybody, you lunatic. Nor do I expect she ever will stab anyone. I think this is kind of what Democrats feel like they want to do when they're angry with somebody or when they're frustrated or upset. They feel like they want to stab somebody or hurt somebody. And so they assume that Republicans must be the same way. Well, if you've shouted at me from across the room because I wasn't close enough for you to speak with, well, that must mean that you hate me and you want to stab me. No, it doesn't. Just calm down, Democrats. Nobody's stabbing anybody. Nobody's assaulting anyone, all right? Nobody shouted at anyone, right? You were shouted to because you were too far away to speak to. Not that big of a deal, all right? This is a huge problem with Democrats because either intentionally or unintentionally, they totally misinterpret the world around them, right? Democrat policies are all based on misperceptions of the world. And this is another one, right? It's a misperception of the world. Why, whether it's disingenuous or they genuinely believe it, it doesn't really matter. The truth is, Marjorie Taylor Greene was simply trying to communicate a message. She wasn't trying to assault anyone. She wasn't trying to hurt anybody, but they're all interpreting it as, she's going to stab someone. This total overreaction, this unbelievable hysteria. Representative Hakeem Jeffries says that Marjorie Taylor Greene is stalking AOC. They work in the same building. You are going to have them cross paths occasionally. That's not stalking, ladies and gentlemen. Brianna Keeler writes, and on Marjorie Taylor Greene verbally accosting and running after AOC in the hallways of the Capitol, Representative Jeffries calls it stalking. Yeah, okay. And he's said this in video, which I'm not going to play because I want to move on to the next story. Anyway, Valeria, what do you think about AOC? What do you think about Marjorie Taylor Greene? Oh, but, and I think that even Pelosi said something about. Hold on a second. I thought I had another thing about this, but maybe that's. I don't remember what Pelosi said. Pelosi said something about this, like she was going to try to get. Oh, hold on. Yeah, I don't remember. She said something something about it, like some unhinged craziness. But anyway, what are you thinking about this whole situation? You have sort of a blank stare, like you don't have any interest in this whatsoever.
Well,
Well,
this woman, Greene, she looks terrifying.
she looks terrifying. You think that's the issue?
Yeah.
She just looks terrifying.
She looks like
What about she looks tough?
tough.
Okay, so the problem essentially here, you know, you make a very good point. I hadn't really thought about that. She does look like she could beat the crap out of AOC, and I think that's really the issue here.
You can just
Yeah, AOC is a relatively small girl.
she's small.
You know, she grew up, dare I say it, privileged. You know, she basically grew up. I suspect she grew up. You know, I mean, look, AOC is not for everybody. I don't think every guy is like, oh, AOC is a stunningly beautiful woman. But you do hear that. You do hear that on the left all the time. You know, a lot of people think AOC is very beautiful, and I can imagine that she probably got away with this a lot. I mean, that's typically like all the bartenders I meet that are women are usually very flirtatious, pretty women. Not necessarily the most beautiful women you've seen, but definitely flirty and pretty. And so if she was a bartender, I imagine that's probably how she made her money, right? That's how she made good tips, is like flirting with guys. And so this is her weapon of choice. Her weapon of choice is being flirtatious, trying to be fun and funny, talking to guys, getting attention from guys. And Marjorie Taylor Greene is a real person, right? She's a tough girl, and she doesn't mind confrontation, whereas I think AOC isn't really used to that. How dare somebody disagree with me on something? Oh my gosh, my feelings were hurt. She scared me because she walked vaguely toward me and shouted across the room to me to try to get my attention. This is not something that should scare anyone, but yeah, I guess you make a good point. She looks tough, so I guess that's something that's scary to Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez. Man, yeah. So basically, we have shown that Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez is a massive coward, and she can't handle somebody shouting to her from across the room. And if so, she wants law enforcement to get involved. Anyway, leftists are crazy, as we always say on the show, and apparently incredibly weak and cowardly. All right, shall we move on to the next story, darling?
France bans use of woke gender-neutral language in schools.
Yeah, I wanted to cover this story, but I didn't have time to read this one today. But so let's have a look here. France bans the use of woke gender-neutral language in schools. It's a danger for our country. I love that. I love that. We should do that. We should do that. France is continuing to crack down on far-left attempts to make the country woke by banning the use of gender...
Isn't he gay? Sorry.
No, darling, he's French. I know, sometimes it's hard.
Gay.
No, he's French.
I think he is a hidden gay.
Darling, all Frenchmen are a little...
Then I don't like it.
Anybody watching this from France is like, you dick. It's a joke, obviously. Let's see here. Attempts to make the country woke by banning the use of gender-neutral language in schools, saying that the push was a threat to French language altogether and could push people to learn English instead. I love that. I love that. I mean, I was talking to somebody the other day about this. Like the European countries, including the UK, all the European countries have massively failed to protect their own cultures. Mm-hmm. They've let in too many immigrants too quickly, and they are destroying their own countries. They're destroying their own societies, and they need to start cracking down now, or else Europe is going to be unrecognizable in 10, 20 years. I mean, it's just going to be, I mean, it's not going to, there's going to be no white people left, you know? I mean, that's kind of an exaggeration, but it is a little scary, you know? I don't want to go through Vienna and have it be all, you know, what do you call that? You know, all Middle Eastern language, all Arabic letters everywhere. You know, I want Europe to remain Europe. If I'm going to travel through Europe, I want to see Europeans. I want to see lederhosen. I don't want to see hijabs everywhere. You know, if I want to see that, I'll go to the United Arab Emirates. I'll go to some Arab country if I want to experience that culture. I do think that people have a right to preserve their culture, you know, in whatever place they're from, their ancestors are from. Let's see here. The country's the country's education ministry issued the ruling last week after a push to include full stops in the middle of written words, dubbed midpoints, which allowed both male and female forms to be represented simultaneously. That's bizarre. Okay, yeah, that's weird. I don't speak French. I mean, I speak a little French. I don't speak French well enough to really understand what that means. I know French is a language which is has gender words, right? So like the word car might be male and the word, you know, table might be female.
Same as in
like
Russian, we have gender.
Right. So I guess that's what they mean. I'm not really sure. Which allowed both male and female forms to be represented simultaneously, the Daily Mail reported. In French grammar, nouns take the gender of the subject to which they refer, with male preferred over female in mixed settings. Right, because and historically, the word man in English also meant women. It was like mankind, right? All men are created equal meant all humans are created equal. All men and women are created equal. But for whatever reason, the left doesn't recognize this. Like, they don't understand it. And so they want to change all, like, the, you know, historical texts. Instead of saying man to represent all humans, they want to say, like, people or men and women. It's idiotic. I mean, it's almost being, like, super lazy. There's nothing misogynist about the word man. The word man just historically just meant people. It's a ma'am. Okay, let's see here. The Académie Française, a nearly 400-year-old institution that, or the Académie Française, I don't know, nearly 400-year institution that guards the French language, pushed back on the attempt to make the language woke, saying that it's harmful to the practice and understanding of French. Well, exactly, yeah. And we're destroying the English language real quick. Natalie Limas, the state secretary for priority education, said on Tuesday that the attempts to make the language woke were a danger to our country and the death knell for the use of the French. And the death knell for the use of French in the world. Limas said the move would not make the language more popular and instead would drive people to learn English instead. With the spread of inclusive writing, the English language already quasi-hegemonic across the world would certainly and perhaps forever defeat the French language, she said. And we can keep reading about this, but the point is that the French realize that wokeness is destroying their culture. The great thing about France, or I guess the great thing, the one thing that is something of a relief, something that gives me hope about the French, is that they have endured a lot of sort of cultural pressure from Muslims. Like, their country has been seriously affected by an influx of Muslims into France, and almost everything about Muslim cultures, people from Muslim cultures moving into France, has been detrimental to the French, to the country, to the people, to the society, to the culture, to everything. Absolutely detrimental. So they realized the harm, and the French started pushing back before any of the other European countries, and they're the only one. Well, one of the few. I guess you got like Poland and Hungary and places like that, but it's one of the few countries that have really pushed back against all this sort of woke leftist crap, because they realize a lot of it pushes, you know, we need to have open immigration and we have to have more Muslims coming into your country. And they're like, whoa, no. This has caused a huge number of problems for our country. And so they're recognizing this and they're pushing back in various ways. And
Just hope by the time we can visit France, me and you, they will still have croissant and not the hummus, you know? Hummus, I mean.
Well, exactly.
You know what hummus I mean. Hamas?
No, not Hamas. Yeah. Well, hopefully they won't have Hamas or hummus. But I do like hummus. I mean, who doesn't like hummus? You don't like hummus? Well, there's something wrong with you. All right, darling. Let's read the next story, because the next story actually is a nice contrast to this one.
Okay. Second largest teachers union member to go woke.
Right. So The second largest teachers union encourages all of its members to get enlightened through texts on anti-racism and white fragility. So, as the French become less woke, we become more woke. All right, sorry, my writer's writing me, and I'm trying to see if it's something that I should relate to you guys, which it probably is, but I think I'm a little late, so I'm not going to read that. Okay, let's move on to this. So, as the French are figuring out they should go less woke or should fight woke culture, we're going more woke because we're a bunch of morons. And I like this picture that they've posted. To be white is to be raised functionally illiterate on the topic of race. And this woman is a noted race-baiting degenerate. So let's read this story here. The second largest teachers union in the country is offering members of its San Diego affiliate to read free copies of a book about anti-racism and white fragility for enlightening summer reading.
Virginity?
Fragility.
Sorry.
My wife, ladies and gentlemen. All right, so American Federation of Teachers website posted a flyer to its website Friday offering union members free copies of How to Be an Anti-Racist by Ibram X. Okay, I think this Ibram X his real name's like Jeff or something. I can't remember, but he's changed his name to make himself more black, more interesting. How to Be an Anti-Racist. It's a completely racist book. A lot of these leftist things like, How to Be an Anti-Racist, it really should be titled How to Be a Racist, right? It's just being a racist against white people. Ibram X. Kendi is his name. Let's look up this guy. Ibram X. Kendi. There we go. Henry Rogers. Henry Rogers is his actual name. But he goes by Ibram X. Kendi because he doesn't want to use the culturally white name Henry Rogers, so he's going with Ibram Kendi. White Fragility by Robin DiAngelo. So this woman up here, this is Robin DiAngelo. She's the completely degenerate piece of garbage white woman who pretends that all white people are racist, including herself. And Reclaiming Our Stories 2 by Khalid Paul Alexander and Manuel Paul Lopez. Also probably degenerates. I don't know who those people are, though. I was actually just talking about this today, about how there's this idea that we have a problem in America of white guilt, and that's why we're kind of allowing all this BS, racism against white people and stuff like that. But I'm not actually sure that that's true. So I've always had a problem with the white guilt thing because I've always thought, like, I can see that leftists are doing things to try to make amends for the sins of our ancestors, right? Sins of white people from 100 years ago or something. But is it really, do they really feel guilty, or are they just virtue signaling? And to me, there's two very different things. If you genuinely feel guilt, right? You genuinely feel guilt. Like if you're the kind of person who...
Why would you feel guilt?
Well, exactly. That's the whole
Why
point.
would you feel guilt?
It doesn't make any sense. Now, here's the thing. I do think there are some people who feel white guilt. They feel like, oh, I'm wealthy, I'm successful. I look at these black people, they're less successful.
I'm white, but I'm Russian. It's a completely different thing. Russians
Right.
were slaves.
Right, Russians were slaves. I'm Scottish and I'm German, and we, our peoples have had difficult histories, Two of the nations that actually fought back the Romans, we were never colonized by the Romans in the same way that the rest of the Europe was. Is that a good thing or bad thing? I don't know. It's just a thing. We were kind of barbarians back in the day. The Scottish were oppressed by the English to some degree. Do I deserve reparations for that? I don't know.
No.
But nobody in my family ever enslaved anyone. Nobody in my family at all ever enslaved anyone. Of course, the left would argue that, well, I benefited from, the racism of black people because we were No, we weren't. No, we weren't. We were poor basically until my father's generation. If you go back far enough, if you go back to, we had different enterprises. I think we had a shoe store at one point. My grandfather worked for the electric company. Then my father started a business. But that's the first time we ever had like a significant amount of money. Before that, I don't know. And we were always on the West Coast. We were always in Minnesota, and then we were in Washington and Oregon. So we weren't even really, we had nothing to do with black people. At the time that we came to America, my German ancestors, Germans were actually considered to be sort of inferior. There was a prejudice against Germans. And there was prejudice against Scottish people as well in America at certain points. So, our family certainly weren't, original English colonists. We weren't the kind of people that were in the upper echelon of society. Anyone in my history that I can find, we were all basically poor for most of history, as far back as I've been able to tell on my Ancestry.com tree. But nevertheless, I get blamed for the sins of other white people that have nothing to do with me in the past, and it's of course ridiculous. And of course, I don't feel guilty about that. Of course, I don't feel freaking guilty about that. I've never oppressed anyone because of their race, but I have been oppressed because of my race. So not only is it offensive to say, "Oh, you should feel guilty about being white," because I've never done anything to feel guilty about, but also, if anything, you should feel guilty about oppressing me. In the 21st century, white people are far more oppressed than any other group, straight white men especially. But again, I don't know if even the people who are like bowing to black people, like physically bowing to black people, do they really feel guilty? I don't think so. So here's what I think is going on. One, I think it's all about virtue signaling, right? Showing how not racist you are by saying that I acknowledge that white people that are the same skin color as me did these bad things, but you're not actually taking accountability yourself, because that doesn't make any sense. You've never done anything like that yourself, so why would it just make any sense? But you're sort of throwing other people under the bus that are also innocent to make yourself look good. So this is the strategy of the left. I've never met a conservative who feels white guilt, but also these leftists who say that there's, who I think encourage us to believe that there's this white guilt around. Again, I just think they're virtue signaling. I don't think that they feel guilty at all. So I think this concept of white guilt sort of facilitating all of this woke garbage, I don't think any of that's true. I think it's all virtue signaling. I think any time a white person apologizes for the sins of white people, I don't think they're apologizing for anything they've done at all. I think they're pointing to conservatives and saying, they're the racists, they're the bad people, they're the ones you need to hate. Not me, I'm the good person, right? So it's this ability to sort of deflect any blame from themselves. So none of us have white guilt. The whole concept of white guilt is nonsense. I think we should stop talking about it. Anyway, moving on to the rest of this story quickly. The American Federation of Teachers website posted a flyer on its website Wednesday. We talked about that. Okay. Don't miss out on these compelling novels, the flyer says. Below the flyer is a message to union members asking them that if they're interested in indulging in some anti-racist summertime reading, the books would be made available at the AFT office in Mission Valley at no cost to members. Here's to an enlightened summer, the message says. Oh my gosh. Absolutely disgusting. Kendi, or Rogers, as I like to call him, is the founding director of the Center of Anti-Racism Research at Boston University. His new book became a New York Times bestseller because so many people wanted it, I think, probably on their coffee table for people to see so that they could go, look how not racist I am. I'm reading the book, How to Be an Anti-Racist. Just having that book is virtue signaling, I think. In the book, Kendi defines racism in terms of actions and policies that are either racist or anti-racist. He's argued that you can't separate the origins of racism from the origins of capitalism. According to Diverse Education, you can't be an anti-racist if you're a pro-capitalist because they're like conjoined twins. Oh, are they, Henry? That's what we call bullshit, ladies and gentlemen. Robin DiAngelo's book, also New York Times bestseller, explores the counterproductive reactions white people have when their assumptions about race are challenged and how these reactions maintain racial inequality. One thing I really hate about this woman, and I'm not going to read the rest of this, about this woman and this perspective that if you say you're not racist, that's just proof that you're a racist, right? This is actually a twist on homophobia, the concept of homophobia. So in the 1990s, a lot of conservatives were like, being a homosexual is wrong. We need to, as a society, we need to reject homosexuality as an appropriate way of life. We need to say this is an inappropriate way of life. And somebody had this kind of hilarious, clever idea that if you were a homosexual, that means you were actually you were a homophobic. If you were homophobic, that meant that you were a latent homosexual, which meant that you were secretly a homosexual and you didn't want to be perceived as a homosexual, and so you were trying to what's the word? You were trying to compensate for your homosexuality by acting strongly anti-homosexual, right? So it's like if I were secretly attracted to men, I would look at homosexuals and go, oh, gross, homosexuals are gross. I hate that kind of thing. Oh, it's so icky, isn't it, guys? Oh, yeah, we hate the homosexuals, right? So this is how they tried to, I guess, cast anyone who was who would contradict them on any political point, right? And for a long time, I think that conservatives had a very difficult time dealing with that because it was something that people would believe. I mean, people believed this. And they thought it was great, and they kept pushing this idea that if you contradicted any progressive point on homosexuality, then you yourself were secretly a homosexual, right? And conservatives didn't want to be called a homosexual, so they had to sit there and think, okay, how do I get around this, right? And it literally took like a decade for conservatives to figure out that they could go, that's an idiotic point that doesn't make any sense. And that's all you have to say, really, is like, okay, what you're saying right now doesn't make any sense. So if I agree with you that homosexuality is great and we should adopt all these resources, then I'm not a homosexual. But if I disagree with you and say we shouldn't adopt all of these this legislation, then somehow I am a homosexual. That doesn't make any sense. You're just saying that to try to convince people that you're right and I'm wrong. It's an idiotic ploy. But so now this woman adopted that approach for her BS race baiting garbage. She's like, if you agree with me, then that means that you're an enlightened person and you're not racist at all. But if you disagree with me that all white people are racist, well, then that means you're definitely a racist. I mean, nothing that this woman says makes any sense. But sadly, certain people on the left still accept this. They still accept it. They still go along with it. And they're like, yes, it's so true. I'll read a little bit about it here. She says, white fragility is a state in which even a minimal challenge to the white position becomes intolerable, triggering a range of defensive positions, D'Angelo's website says. Racism is the foundation of Western society. We are socialized into a racial hierarchy, her website says in a description about her approach to anti-racism. So this is what I'm talking about, right? This is the concept of white fragility. White people are just so fragile about being accused of being a racist. We're not fragile, you stupid idiot. The reason why we disagree with you is because you're wrong. It's because you're wrong. That's it. No, Western society is not founded on racism. It's just idiot. Everything about this woman is moron. She needs to travel a little bit. She's a moron. Okay, go anywhere in the world. Go to China. Go to Africa. Go to India. Go anywhere, and you will see tons of racism. To sit here and say, "Oh, the foundation of Western civilization was racism, and we have to, we have to be punished for our evil white sins." No, everybody was racist. Everybody is racist. The only people that aren't racist are Northern Europeans and white Americans and people who colonized the world from Northern Europe. That's it. We're the only people that are not racist. All right. If anything, we deserve a flippin' medal. Next story. Unless you want to say something about this, darling.
No.
Okay. Next story?
Can we do the rest of the stories in 10 minutes?
Yes, we can. They're short.
3, I think 3.
Yes.
Rachel Maddow said she can no longer feel superior for wearing a mask.
Yes, Rachel Maddow is
Who
having
is
some...
that?
Rachel Maddow? She's the girl that looks like a boy on MSNBC. Yes, it's that one.
CNN degenerate?
Yeah, MSNBC degenerate.
MSNBC degenerate.
Yeah. Let's see here. Progressives are upset about the CDC lifting a mask mandate. So this isn't actually the Rachel Maddow story. I wanted to start out with something else here, a different news article, because this actually enlightened me as to why the left is all like, we need to get a vaccine and we need to keep wearing the masks. Because I couldn't understand this for a while, but this actually enlightened me quite a bit as to what they're thinking. So progressives voiced their dismay following the Center for Disease Control's Prevention updated guidance that vaccinated people no longer need to wear masks indoors or outdoors. Progressives And medical experts immediately criticized the new Center for Disease Control and Prevention's mask guidelines, arguing that the alteration was extreme and would be harmful to certain parts of the population, which it doesn't make any sense, right? I mean, logically, conservatives are just like, what the hell are you talking about? Because we don't quite understand always how leftists think because they're so flippin' crazy. But actually, in this case, the way they're thinking actually...
Wait. Progressives and medical experts criticized, but isn't it CDC are medical experts?
Yeah. Well, some medical experts, obviously, leftist medical experts. But listen, in this case, what they're saying actually makes a little bit of sense. It doesn't make total sense, but it actually is somewhat logical, which is bizarre for the left. But anyway, it's interesting. The CDC has done an about-face that's shockingly abrupt. It's confusing and could actually desensitize vaccines, Dr. Liana Wen. And I didn't really understand this. But it took me a second, but I figured it out. Like, how does saying if you get the vaccine, you can take your mask off, disincentivize people from getting vaccines? But what she's saying actually makes sense. So hold on a second. Yes, vaccinated people are well protected and no threat to others, she said in a later tweet. But do we trust that the honor system won't unvaccinated people pretend to be vaccinated and stop wearing masks? So this is their concern, which actually does make some sense. That people who don't want to get vaccinated, right? Now that we've said, okay, if you're vaccinated, you can take off your mask outside. Mm-hmm. So now she thinks that what's going to happen is unvaccinated people like us are going to go around without our masks outside, and people are just going to assume we're vaccinated because we're not wearing our masks, and we can go out feeling perfectly fine.
That's why you get the baseball cat was saying I'm vaccinated.
But here's the thing, sweetie. We do that, and we know other people who do it as well. We're totally happy that you can go without masks because now the two of us who will never be vaccinated, we don't get as many questions. We don't get as many dirty looks. People are fine with us not wearing masks because they assume that we're vaccinated, which is great. So she's right.
But I actually want to say, no, I'm not vaccinated. I'm just an a-hole. You know? Because I don't want people to think
ladies and gentlemen, is why I married her. And she's hot. Anyway, so no, you're right. You're right. We don't care as much, but there's a lot of people who, like us, will go out without masks, and they won't feel like they're being ostracized by society because most of the people are vaccinated now, or a lot of people are vaccinated. So they're right. They're right. The problem, of course, is that when you're walking around outside, a mask doesn't really make any difference.
I heard conversation yesterday in elevator. There was a couple, and the guy was saying to his girlfriend, he was like, there's a guy walked into, he has this kind of business, like a store somewhere here. And he was like, the guy walked in without a mask on. And I was like, can you put your mask on? He was like, the CDC said you can remove your mask. And he was like, well, that's a private business. And I was like, I can imagine like what these people feel like. They got the vaccine, they did everything CDC told them for like a year and a half, and they still can do like what they said because that's a private business, and you don't know when are they going to remove their restrictions.
Yeah, a lot of businesses in LA have not caught up. I think people CDC guidelines.
Damn. Yeah. When can I just walk in without mask on? You know.
Yeah. Well, we're in a very progressive area. We're in Los Angeles, and they will just. They'll just keep doubling down, tripling down. And actually, so what's really telling about this is what we saw with...
What's up? Good morning.
With what Rachel Maddow said about... Hey, stop paying attention to the cat. Stop paying attention to the cat.
Good morning. Sunday morning.
You have fans out there. Good morning, Sunday morning.
Not this woman.
Not this woman, no. So Rachel Maddow kind of revealed, I think, what a lot of Democrats are saying now, which is that, you mean I can't look down on people who don't wear masks when I wear a mask? Like, she seems genuinely unhappy that she no longer has to wear a mask because this was a nice symbol, sort of like the Star of David, right? The sort of reverse of that in Nazi Germany, right? In Nazi Germany, certain people had to wear patches so that people who didn't have to wear patches could look at the patched people and say, I'm superior. But Rachel Maddow loves the mask because the mask is a sign.
She can wear her mask for the rest of her life because she's not the prettiest woman in this world.
Rachel Maddow, please, for the love of humanity, wear a mask. Wear a mask for the rest of your life. Wear a mask on the show. Just constantly wear a mask. We would all love it if you would wear a mask, Rachel Maddow. Okay, let's see here. NBC host Rachel Maddow said on her well, let's just watch what she has to say here, because it's quite beautiful. Oh, you know what? I think this played past. Ready to go. There we go. There she is. Is that her? Yeah, I think that's it. Okay, so let's go ahead and play this. I'm going to turn the volume on.
I need something to relate to. Tell me what that thing can be. I need somewhere to escape to. They say that's what I feel. Free. I'm on the way.
We'll just tell you at a personal level, I'm sorry for speaking of all that in such personal terms with Dr. Walensky, but when I was talking to people today about this new guidance and what to ask her, everybody had very personal feelings about it, and I realized I did too in all these questions. Part of it is that I feel like I'm going to have to rewire myself so that when I see somebody out in the world who's not wearing a mask, I don't instantly think you are a threat or you are selfish or you are a COVID denier and you definitely haven't been vaccinated. I mean, we're going to have to rewire the way that we look at each other, because the CDC's guidance, which she just told me we are sure, is that if you're vaccinated, you don't need to wear a mask except in very specific circumstances. As we change that as a country, we are going to look at each other differently and have to unwire our preconceptions about what a mask or a lack of a mask means. President Biden spoke to that a little bit today, asking for people to, President Biden actually and Dr. Fauci both spoke to that today, asking for people to essentially be patient, be compassionate, give people respect for whatever they decide on this front, because with this changing guidance, we're going to now have changing norms, and we got to give each other space to have feelings about that as we go through what's going to be a big change that's going to create a lot of visceral reaction in a lot of us just in our day-to-day lives.
So this is obviously insane, but I can guarantee, ladies and gentlemen, Rachel Maddow will not stop disrespecting you just because you're now allowed to not wear a mask. Rachel Maddow will find a way to try to feel superior to everybody else that she sees in the world. She just can't do it with the obvious mask now, which is obviously painful for her, a little bit of a problem, but she'll figure it out. I believe in Rachel Maddow. I believe in her ability to feel superior to others, for really no reason whatsoever, because she is a moron. She is a conspiracy theorist. She is, a complete degenerate. And
No, degenerous. Ellen DeGeneres.
Ellen DeGeneres. Yeah. Well, anyway, so she's she will constantly be this horrible person, but because she's got a successful show, I think in large part because she's a lesbian, and MSNBC wanted that kind of person to have a show. They promoted her show for years. So even though she doesn't have the best ratings in the world, she is definitely beloved by some far left lunatics. And MSNBC will continue to push her forever, even though she's total crap. And she pushes conspiracy theories all day long. And she will continue to feel superior to other people. I don't think that you can have the job that she has, push these lies constantly day after day with the kind of confidence that she does, if you don't have a massive ego. I mean, she is irrationally arrogant. And she's delusional, I think, not only about politics, but I think about herself. I think she thinks of herself as superior to other people. This is something I think a lot of Democrats like to do. They like to believe they're superior to other people. I mean, you heard what she said. It's all about emotion. None of it was about facts or reason. It was all, she's like, a lot of this is just going to make us viscerally feel, we're going to viscerally feel weird about this. It's just going to feel weird, and we have to sort of deal with that. And that's a huge problem with the left, right? A lot of the things that they believe are based on their feelings, and they completely ignore reality. They're just like, but it makes me feel bad, and I don't like to feel bad. I don't understand. So yeah, but I do trust that Rachel Maddow will get through this and continue to be able to feel superior to everybody else, because she is a delusional degenerate. Darling, do you have anything to say about this? Do you love Rachel Maddow secretly? Do you secretly watch MSNBC when I'm not looking?
No.
The look of disgust on Valeria's face was absolutely beautiful. All right, darling,
too.
shall we move on
What do you want?
to the next story?
Come here. Come here.
You want to just ignore me and talk to the
Yes,
cat for the
come
rest of
here.
the show? Okay.
here.
Darling,
Yes.
next story.
GOP caves on Democrats' investigation of Capitol protest.
Yeah, so this is kind of frustrating. So apparently we're going into a massive investigation of the Capitol protest so that we can make sure that we know exactly what happened that encouraged people to casually walk through the Capitol building. It's ridiculous. Republicans on the House Homeland Security Committee have caved to Democrats' demands for a 9/11 style commission to investigate the January 6th Capitol riot. I bet that'll cost no money at all. And by no money at all, I mean millions and millions of taxpayer dollars. Hello, Aston. Let's see here. GOP Representative John Katko, the ranking member on the committee, led negotiations with the Democrats to reach consensus about the commission. His support for the commission is being marketed by the corporate media as bipartisan support. But the New York representative is one of the few Republicans in the House who voted to impeach former President Donald Trump the second time Democrats targeted him. So Katko essentially needs to go. If you are a voter in New York, please vote out this piece of garbage. He also blames Trump for causing the insurrection at the Capitol. So yeah, he's somebody like Liz Cheney who just need to be voted out of office. By deliberately promoting the baseless theories suggesting that the election was somehow stolen, the president created a combustible environment of disinformation, disenfranchisement, and division. Aston, you want to say hi to the fans? Okay. Yeah, I don't understand why Liz Cheney... You want to come over here? I don't understand why Liz Cheney or this guy or other Republicans are perfectly willing to accept that the election was perfectly fair. I think that there might be some kind of... You really want to get on camera today, don't you? All right, come on. Yep. There you go. Ooh, I think that there's some the sort of perception that Americans are going to, I don't know, if we lose faith in our democracy or something like that, then it's going to wreak havoc on the whole system. Like somehow America's going to collapse if Americans stop having total faith in our election system. But the problem with that is that, yeah, okay, maybe there will be some kind of an issue if people stop having faith in the election system. But if the election system actually is broken, if there are actual fraud involved, if there is actual cheating involved, then it doesn't matter what the American people believe. The American people, our whole system of government is collapsing. It doesn't really matter what the American people think. We're not going to hasten the collapse if fraud actually exists. If we lose faith in our election system irrationally, if there was no fraud, then okay, I can understand what they're saying. But for them to just assume that there was no fraud despite all of the red flags, to me, they're just they're either lying or, and I think the reason why they would lie is because of this fear. But if there really is fraud, if there really is some kind of nastiness going on there, we have to figure that out. We can't just let that go. And not only are they just letting it go and they're perfectly willing to ignore the possibility of any kind of fraud, they're actively fighting against any thought, any speculation about that. And so to me, these people are enemies of the state. These people are actively trying to stop Americans from discussing the possibility of perhaps the election was fraudulent, which I think we must be able to talk about. We must be able to speculate about if we're going to have a healthy democracy or a healthy, representative republic or whatever the hell you want to call it. A lot of people get mad when you say democracy. We call these people pedants. Do not get mad when somebody says democracy. It is stupid. Everybody knows what we're talking about. I get mad when people get mad about that. All right, let's see here. Baseless theories, he calls it. When this manifested in violent acts on January 6th, no, it didn't. He refused to promptly and forcefully call it off, putting countless lives in danger, Katko said. What is up with these these never Trumper degenerates. I mean, this guy is, I mean, what he's saying here is delusional. Nothing Trump said encouraged any kind of violence. All right. There were protesters who casually walked through the Capitol. Yeah, there was some pushing and shoving. Nobody got really hurt. Nobody died. Okay, there was a false account of one police officer dying, but it was false. You can move past it, Catco, you piece of garbage. I really hate this guy. I hate this guy more than Democrats because this is the kind of a-hole that he parades around as a Republican and then goes around and he tries to subvert the will of the people. The will of the people is investigate the election. We believe there was fraud. That's the will of the people. And this guy's saying, no, there isn't. And no, there isn't. Everything's fine here. Everything's fine. Don't look behind the curtain. Everything's fine. Like, what the hell are you defending Democrats for, you piece of trash? You're supposed to be a Republican. You're supposed to represent us.
Darling.
No, I will not shush. Oh, I hate this guy. I want to move to New York and run against him just to take that MFer out. Oh, I hate people like that. Pelosi previously proposed having an 11-member committee dominated by 7 Democrats, while Republicans would have only 4 members. House Homeland Security Committee Chairman Democrat Benny Thompson of Mississippi and Catco, however, decided a 10-person committee with equal partisanship is necessary to move forward. It is unclear at this point what kind of... Well, it doesn't matter if they're Republican, if they're never Trumper Republicans. They're just rhinos. If they're just rhinos, it doesn't really matter if they're like Democrats or Republicans. They're basically all Democrats. It is unclear at this point what kind of members the GOP will place on the committee. Subpoenas will also be allowed as long as the chair and vice chair of the commission concur on majority of the commission votes to issue. There has been a growing consensus that the January 6th attack is of a complexity and national significance that we need is an independent investigation to investigate. Sorry, an independent commission to investigate, Thompson and Catco said in a joint statement. I don't care what these people say. They are human garbage, and they need to be voted out and replaced. Okay, darling, the last story of the day. Go.
Finally.
Hey. Show some respect to the show and to the fans.
It's not about the show and fans. It's about how many stories we have and how little time we have.
That's fine. They're good. They're all good stories. Go.
Report finds Democrats' election bill funded by dark money with foreign backer.
Yeah, this is really interesting. So I didn't actually get a chance to look at this story, but I was so intrigued by the headline. I wanted to go ahead and go through with this and read it. Go through with this and read it. Democrat election takeover bill funded by dark money group bankrolled by foreign donor. Okay, this is interesting. So the contents, this is written by Grant Atkinson of the Western Journal. The contents of the Democrats' House Resolution 1, the election bill. So by the way, the HR 1 bill is something I've been meaning to make a video about, and I never did. But I have a Word file entitled HR 1 that I wanted to go over it. It's essentially all the things I warned everybody about if Democrats won. If Biden won in November, it was like, I know that they're going to try to take all these measures to ensure Democrat victories from this point on forever and ever and ever. And that's essentially what H.R. 1 is. So the contents of the bill are controversial enough by themselves, but now a new report suggests that a dark money group financed by a foreign national is funding the lobbying for that bill along with other Democratic priorities. According to Fox News, the 1630 fund has put almost $2 million into the efforts to sway senators on issues ranging from H.R. 1 to D.C. statehood and the Voting Rights Act amendment, right? So these are all things that are being used to ensure Democrat supremacy in Washington forever. Fox News reported that $1.3 million has been spent on internal lobbyists, and another $480,000 was sent to government relations firm Keefe Singesser Partners. I don't know. Keefe Singesser Partners between 2019 and 2020. That group is headed by Mara Keefe, who is the former chief of staff for Democrat Senator Jeanne Shaheen of New Hampshire. Let's see here. The 1630 fund would certainly be considered a dark money group by any reasonable person. According to the New York Times, Swiss billionaire Hans-Jorf Weiss indirectly shelled out $135 million to the group between 2016 and 2020. Well, I'm going to have to look up that guy. Through the Burger Action Fund, which shares facilities and staff with the Vice Foundation. The Times explained that dark money typically refers to political spending channeled through nonprofit groups that can be relatively secret about their finances and donors. The outlet reported that this type of spending has become more prominent in the wake of multiple court rulings that loosened restrictions on campaign finances. The Times made clear that despite the left's accusation of Republicans making use of dark money funds, they've increasingly shown a willingness to do so themselves. While progressives and election watchdogs announced the developments as bestowing too much power to wealthy interests, Democrat donors and operatives increasingly made use of dark money, the outlet reported. During 2020's election cycle, groups aligned with Democrats spent more than $514 million on such funds compared to about $200 million spent by groups aligned with Republicans, according to an analyst by the Research for Responsive Politics. Essentially, the Democrats are using dark money, hiding who their money is coming from in a far more significant way than Republicans. Because even though Republicans are taking dark money, I don't think... See, the problem with the whole system is that Republicans are patriots, right? Typically, we don't do anything that is going to be against the public interest, going to reduce the quality of life of Americans. But Democrats are not patriotic. They don't care about America. They don't care about the quality of life here. They will do whatever they think is best to stay in power, to raise money, to get votes. They don't care about really the quality of life of America, right? They don't care about America first. The whole Build Back Better campaign of the whole slogan, that's an international slogan. That is not just Joe Biden's slogan. That was also the slogan in the UK, Build Back Better, and it was also a slogan used by what's that sort of New World Order thing that they're doing? The sort of Green New Deal that's coming out of what is that? Germany? I forget. There's this whole oh gosh, I forget what it's called. This whole program to push Green New Deal crap. Anyway, using COVID as the excuse. They were using COVID as the excuse. Why can't I remember that? I can't remember stuff. I'm worse than Joe Biden sometimes. But anyway, this Build Back Better thing was an international slogan that was used by a variety of different groups. It wasn't just Joe Biden, but the Biden people, they took that because, they were part of that international effort. Oh, he just went to the bathroom. That's what happened. We got a fancy electronical gadgety litter box, and so when the cat goes to the bathroom, you can hear the machine be triggered, and for some reason he goes crazy meowing after he goes to the bathroom. Why is that? It's weird.
We need
right?
to cheer, I guess. I don't know.
All right, we need to cheer. Hey, good job, Aston. All right, let's see. Vice said in 2014 that he was not a United States citizen. Fox News reported this further raises questions about his involvement in lobbying for bills such as H.R. 1. In a separate article, Fox News explained some of the controversial provisions in the H.R. 1 election bill. And, I've basically gone over that. I'm not going to go over this whole story, but that's interesting. So I'm actually going to look up this guy, and I'm going to investigate his whole situation. Hans-Georg Weiss. Hans-Georg Weiss. We don't want you interfering with our politics, Hans-Georg Weiss. Get the F out. Not interested. You should not be dictating how America works. Okay, well, that's it for the news. Darling,
Yes.
would you like to read questions and comments?
Yeah, we have 2 super chats.
Oh, fantastic. You're very dark.
It's okay. So the first super chat from Luke Mihalik. Pigs are used to find this fungi plus the word used to describe rearranging a deck of cards by sliding the cards over each other quickly.
Say that all one more time.
I think you need to read that.
Okay. Who wrote it?
Luke.
Luke Mahalik.
Yeah. It's a super chat.
All right, I'm looking. Let's see here. All right, he writes, pigs are used to find this fungi, the word used to describe. So is he's talking about truffles. Oh, truffles, by sliding the cards over each other quickly. Truffle shuffle.
Truffle shuffle.
So he's saying truffle shuffle. I don't know what that means. You want me to do the truffle shuffle? I don't think it's going to happen, Luke. That's something from the show Goonies, which is excellent.
I don't know
I may be a
that.
bit fat, but I'm not that fat, Luke. Come on. Moving on.
And from patron Daniel,
Oh, patron Daniel.
Rachel Maddow looks like a
Al Bundy's neighbor. Here's Cav Food Money. Thank you. Yeah, Al Bundy's neighbor is actually a famously crazy progressive leftist lesbian who, the actress, who ended up directing on the show and had this big, the show was Married with Children, and she had like a sort of issue with the guy who played Al Bundy, because the guy who played Al Bundy is more of a conservative. So, but it was like his show. He was the star. And so she was essentially screwed because she didn't like him. She wanted him off the show and all this kind of stuff. And what are they going to do? Get rid of the star of the show? It doesn't make any sense. So he essentially had all the power, and it was an interesting. And she kind of cut her hair real short like that. And I don't know. I've never understood why leftists, like Democrat, like feminist lesbians who constantly complain about white men, how much they hate them, why they always try to look like us. Stop cutting your hair like us. Figure out your own hairstyle, ladies. Stop trying to look like white men. It doesn't make any sense. You hate us, right? I feel like a teenage girl who's constantly being asked out by the nerd in school, going, "Why are you so obsessed with me?" Like, stop trying to be white men. If you hate white men, stop trying to be white men, you lunatic. Take a note from AOC. At least, as much as I find AOC insufferable and super annoying, at least she doesn't try to look like a man. That's something you got going for you, AOC, okay? I still haven't figured out whether I believe that AOC is a true believer in the crazy stuff that she says, or if she's just a really good con artist and is just like all the other Democrats and knows what she's saying is absolute garbage, but just pretends that she believes it so that she can be more popular. It's hard to know. I think she started out being a true believer, but I don't know where she's at now. Because she's got to have some sense that what she's saying is totally nonsense. All right, I think that's it. Are we done?
Yeah.
Oh, I see. Luke's playing bingo, so he wanted to mention that I'm fat because that's one of the squares in their stupid bingo game. By the way, I kind of love your stupid bingo game. I think that's hilarious. All right, guys. Let us say goodbye for the weekend. I'm going to get some great new videos out coming up. I got a bunch of stuff I got to work on. And so a new video every day for the next 20 days, I think. That's what it's going to be. But some of them are, of course, going to be segments from this show because most of my viewers on Toxic Masculinity never see the stuff on here. So we're going to take some of the best stuff from this show and put it on to Mr.
We got
Reagan.
another super chat.
One more super chat. Jordan B. To distract your minds from politics, I wanted to ask you both what you love to do as a hobby outside of tech. Outside of tech as a hobby. Well, actually, that's a great question. We'll try to be quick about this. So obviously, I started working in Hollywood. I was trying to work in Hollywood as a writer. So I've written hundreds of short stories, TV shows, movies, nothing that's been sold or published ever. But I've written hundreds of stuff. I'm a very, very keen writer. I love writing. And I occasionally want to tell some of my brilliant stories here on the show, but Valeria doesn't like it when I do that. But they are. I like the twist ending, right? So I watched Twilight Zone when I was a kid. I loved that, and I'm sort of obsessed with creating new stories and new worlds. I'm also an avid tennis player, or I was before I started this show. I love playing tennis. I've taught you how to play tennis. We've gone a few times, but I think the first time we went was when we were in Oregon on vacation, the Black Butte resort thing. Is that right? Yeah. And but I think we're going to be playing a bit of tennis when we go on vacation shortly. So that's nice. I love playing tennis, but I'm not that good at it. But I love playing. I never really got into golf. My dad's a big golfer. What are some of your hobbies, darling? Obviously, trading crypto. Valeria?
Yes.
Can you hear that I'm speaking?
Yes.
What are you doing?
Nothing.
Are you texting someone?
No.
Would you like to share with the rest of the class? All right. Pay attention a little bit. Show a little bit of respect for the show. For crying out loud. What's going on? Is it Dogecoin? What are you texting?
It's not Dogecoin.
Okay, so you don't have to be texting anybody. That's a question.
I'm not texting anyone.
Well, what are you doing?
Nothing.
Come on.
Not doing
Come on.
anything.
And just tell the class what's happening. Share your
Nothing.
note.
I have my personal.
I feel like I'm dealing with a child half the time.
True.
Okay. So what do you like to do outside of the show, outside of trading crypto? She does have some Russian friends. She goes and hangs out with her Russian friends.
Reading
sometimes.
news about crypto.
Reading news about crypto. Yeah, it is kind of funny. We do kind of become like heavily involved in. Now, I'll tell you what my favorite thing to do is in the whole world. I love traveling. Traveling is my favorite thing. I love going to different countries, enjoying the different cultures. Unfortunately, because I married this one, I've not really been able to leave the country in, 3 years? So, yeah, I've been stuck here. But we were going to get our green card recently, but that got postponed because, the U.S. government sucks. So we still can't leave the country. We're going to go to Europe this year, but it looks like that's not happening. I may go by myself. We'll have to figure that out. It depends on how much money we make in crypto, really. But Valeria really wants to go back to Russia and see her family, so we may try to figure that out. I mean, unfortunately, the immigration department in America is just horrible, horrible, horrible. I think a lot of it is to do with the fact that they just let so many people through the system that shouldn't be going through the system. Valeria obviously should be going through the system because she married an American. A lot of these people that are going into the system are scamming it, and so we're getting blocked up. But yeah, so we don't do too much. I actually like to research medieval history a little bit. I like medieval history and history even from before those times, before medieval Europe, like even I like pre-Roman stuff, like the civilizations of what we now call Turkey, but what was it once called Anatolia. Mm-hmm. I like all those cultures. I always find that stuff really fascinating. And also the sort of the steppe people. I don't know if you guys know about the steppe people. So I like ancient history, and I also like medieval history. There's mostly medieval history. I would say that is my primary interest. So those are things that I like.
I'm sorry that I was distracted. I just make $1,000 out of one coin that I put this morning. So I'm just kind of
you
like...
made 1,000? So it is about
I was
crypto.
like, should I just jump out right now
so
or
when
what
I said
should I
this
do?
is about crypto, why do you say no?
I said,
So you're lying.
I'm lying. I'm lying.
What, did you become a Democrat over the past half an hour?
A little bit.
All right, ladies and gentlemen. Well, Valeria is
I have
distracted
3 jobs.
because
I'm
of her...
sorry, guys. I'm sorry. I have to be there and there at the same time. No, it's actually my 4th job, what we're doing right now.
All right, ladies and gentlemen. We are done with our job for today. I'm going to continue working.
No, you are going to put out a shelf in the bathroom. Please, it's just 4 holes you need to drill. I will do the rest of myself.
All right, okay. I will go ahead.
Can you drill 4 holes?
Is that a sexual joke? Okay, I'm going to bring 4 girls over and we'll find out. Boom. Yeah, so I'll go ahead and put up the shelf and then I will continue working on our Mr. Reagan videos for this weekend and next week. I will chat with you guys on Monday. You have an awesome weekend. Kiss your wife. Hug your kids. Relax. Watch some TV. And enjoy the weekend. All right. Until Monday, ladies and gentlemen, it is goodbye for us. You want to say goodbye, darling?
Goodbye and see you on Monday. But I'm working on Monday, so probably I won't be able to make it, but it's not 100%.
All right. Well, we will see you guys at some point next week. I will certainly see you Monday. Oh, good night.
Toxic masculinity.
I think that was great. I think that was